Lewis Hamilton won the German Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And Sebastian Vettel crashed out. And all the Ferrari fans on Twitter were going mental. It was very funny to watch. So I enjoyed that. And also Tiger Woods was competing in a Open. So, good day of sport.
Yeah, do you know what it's also been? A very hot day.
Yeah.
It
has.
Blooming hot. And I ate a roast dinner. Like, my dinner was a roast dinner. It's kind of just like, it's a bit hot for it, really.
Yeah, I don't have roast dinners in the summer. Well, my parents don't make me. And themselves roast dinners. We have a chicken salad.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing is, I guess it's because we bought the chicken when it wasn't that hot. I mean, we got some good rain. I think the day before yesterday we got some good rain. That was good. Nothing more like talking about the weather. Anyway.
I mean, I don't want to dampen the mood, but have you seen, like, the temperature in the Arctic Circle? It's like 33 degrees Celsius, like, this past week.
So what you're saying is that all the ice... Are you talking about this lie, global warming?
I'm saying global warming is going to fuck future generations so much.
It is. I mean, yeah, to be honest, Luke, it's pretty bad. Like, I do think about it. Like, it has been, like... And also, one of the things when I was watching... when I watched every single match of the World Cup yesterday all the way through, the full 90 minutes somehow, even though that shouldn't be humanly possible, even though I did that. The trick is to put them all on at the same time, and just and then you enter into a new dimension. Anyway, yeah, one of the things that they kept mentioning is like how hot it was, and obviously that was a month ago. But legit point, it was just like it's just been. I mean, it has been like there was a heat wave in April, I remember, and since then it's pretty. Because I remember in April thinking, okay, it's so hot in April, and I had a premonition in April. I was like, we're just going to be having constant heat waves for the next 6 months, and
I thought you were going to say like 60 years.
Constant heat waves for the next 60 years. Like, I don't know. Like, I think this is my theory. The year is too long. What we need is we need 2 years of half the length, because the thing is, it's like there's too much summer and too much winter. Like, wouldn't it be great?
Yeah,
wouldn't it be great if we had like a winter right now? So you could have like 3 months of summer, 3 months of winter. Who needs autumn and spring? 3 months of summer, 3 months of winter, 3 months of summer, 3 months of winter. That's your year. Great.
The problem is with this fucking angled globe that we live on.
Luke, it's not a globe, by the way. Just.
Oh right, I'm sorry. This angled world we live on. Whatever. It's like really cold, like really really cold for like 3 months, and it's really really hot for 3 months, and obviously this is like practically everywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
And it's like there's no in between. Like there's like a couple of months of in between where it's nice, it's not too hot, not too cold, and the rest of the time it's just fucking like either too hot or too cold. You know, it's. Maybe global warming will fix that, and we'll just have warmth throughout the year.
Yeah, now we can all just get air conditioning and contribute to the problem and make it worse, because then we'll all be using air conditioning. Fantastic. There's always a solution. Anyway.
Okay. Back up, chump, you know Biggie Smalls rips it quick and kicks it quick. You know how black niggas get. With the hoods for keys, with the boots with trees. Flipping trees, making crazy G's. Hitting buckshots at niggas that open spots on the avenue. Take my loot and I'm bagging. Pimping hoes that drive Volvos and rodeos. Flash the roll, make a wet in they pantyhose. Damn, a nigga style is unorthodox. Grip the Glock when I walk down the crowded blocks. Just in case a nigga wanna act out, I just black out and blow the motherfucking back out. That's a real nigga for you.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast. Do you like what I did that, Luke?
I do.
I was like, because it's not where we look at the films that have come out relatively recently at the cinema and see if they still hold up. This week we're looking at the World Cup, which, if you were to put it together, would run as long as 64 feature-length films plus injury time plus extra time.
Yes. It's very accurate.
Each one's, it's not that difficult really, because each thing's 90 minutes, and that's how long a feature-length film is. Mm-hmm. And there were 64 matches, Luke. How much?
That's a lot.
That's a lot of football. And the weird thing is, the first 3/4 of them were in the group stages.
Yes.
Because of maths.
That is the case.
Anyway, I am your host, Michael, and I'm joined by my co-host, Luke. And Luke, why don't you tell us, I don't know how we're going to do this, Luke. I don't know how well it's going to correspond to our usual way of doing things. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the 2018 World Cup?
Certainly, Michael. The 2018 FIFA World Cup was the 21st FIFA World Cup, an international football tournament contested by the men's national teams and the member associations of FIFA once every 4 years, and it took place in Russia from the 14th of June to the 15th of July 2018. It was the first World Cup to be held in Eastern Europe, and the 11th time it's been held in Europe altogether. It cost about $14.2 billion, most expensive World Cup ever, and it was also the first World Cup to use a video assistant referee, which is VAR, obviously. I'm not going to go through who this World Cup starred, because it would be there forever. Well, basically, the final positions were as follows. Obviously, France won, with Croatia coming second, Belgium coming third, and England coming fourth.
Hey!
The top scorer was Harry Kane, with 6 goals, also England. Best player was Luka Modric from Croatia. The best young player was Kylian Mbappe. The best goalkeeper was Thibaut Courtois. And do you want to guess who won the Fair Play Award? Which country won the Fair Play Award?
Germany.
Spain.
Okay.
Spain won the Fair Play Award, so there you go.
I guess they get, what's it called? They get, like, extra points for having Diego Costa. Cause it's like, it's like, oh, well, you know, they managed to play fairly and they have Diego Costa. It's pretty impressive.
Yes. The goals, per match there were 2.64 goals, so on average. So I think that's quite good, actually. I don't know, I have to check with previous tournaments, but I think there were quite a few goals. 169, nice. Goals
well, man,
total.
2.64 goals, that's like nothing. That's like in baseball and basketball.
Actually, baseball's quite boring.
And American football, which we just call football. They score like so many goals, and football's boring, man, because no one ever scores.
The thing is, in basketball, one of the reasons why I do like it is it's constantly up and down things happening. But in
that's
baseball,
because they're bouncing the ball, Luke, so it has to be up and down.
Yeah, that's great. It's great stuff. Yeah, but yeah, basketball is a sport which I love. Baseball is boring. I think probably football is more exciting than baseball. As for American football, it's good, but like there's like breaks every like 5 minutes, which makes it a bit shit. Like if you get a really good football game, American football game, it's really fun. But like if you get a bad American football game, like it's really bad. Like it's a struggle to watch.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a bad football game.
No. I'd say the floor though, in terms of how bad something can get, is lower on American football compared to normal European football.
Yeah, soccer ball.
Anyway, Michael, so this is the part of the review where we normally say, did you like it? Referring to the movie. Obviously, you and I are both fans of football and watched, I think, every match in the World Cup.
So
I assume you did like it.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a fun time for the whole family, and I would recommend it.
Obviously, like the Euros are on as well once every 4 years, so each summer you pretty much every 1 out of 2 summers you have like this tournament of football. Obviously, the World Cup with more games lasts longer, and I'm just thinking like this year, if the World Cup wasn't on, I'd be so bored. It just adds so much excitement.
I hate summers where there's no World Cup or no Euros.
Yeah, it's like the Euros and the Olympics, they're back to back, which is nice. But then the World Cup, there's nothing.
Yeah, to be honest, I think they should have they need something on the odd years, basically. Yeah, there's nothing. The odd years suck.
Like they've got the Nations League, which is coming up next year.
When's the Commonwealth Games? It's immaterial because I don't watch them, but when are they?
I have no idea when the Commonwealth Games are.
There we go. Yeah, anyway. Poor Commonwealth.
You got any nitpicks?
No.
No. Okay, neither have I. Well, actually, we have got some nitpicks about the overall tournament, but I guess we can talk about that when it comes to how good the actual tournament was. Obviously, we've got some topics that we want to discuss that we feel will cover the 2018 FIFA World Cup in its entirety, and give you a nice little review of it. So obviously, first up, we're going to talk about France and Croatia, the 2 finalists, and indeed the final itself. So obviously, France ended up winning and Kylian Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann were the stars of the show, with Paul Pogba putting in a really good performance in the final. Obviously, Michael, you had a bit of an issue watching the final, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So the story goes. In fact, actually, I mentioned this at the beginning of our Die Hard review, which is that I was in Belgium at the time, and we came back. I'll tell you the story about us coming back, actually. It was not much of a story. But we went, because we were travelling by Eurostar, and we actually went to the wrong Brussels train station, because we got to kind of the outskirts Brussels train station. We were like, oh, let's go off, and then we were like, oh, it doesn't feel right. There's lots of people still staying on, and this train, goes to Brussels, so why are people still staying on? And so I was like, it's because, this isn't the central stop. And we were like, okay, we need to go to the central stop. Get to the central stop, we're like, hey, there's no Eurostar stuff, and then we speak to someone, they're like, yeah, the Eurostar connection's back at the outskirts train. Fortunately, there was one leaving, relatively soon, so we ended up obviously getting there in time. And also, Belgium is, just so efficient, so it was slightly quicker getting through than on the English side. The English side was really hectic, actually. Anyway, so we got on there, and then I think the only other thing, there was a bit of a delay, like a 40-minute delay getting the train from London to Milton Keynes, and then this is another thing. The train to Milton Keynes stopped because there was like a trespasser on the track, and then we were stopped for ages. We started moving again. They were like, oh, sorry, there was a trespasser on the track. Then we stopped again, and it was like, how did he escape? Like, you would assume, if there's a trespasser on the track, then they're escorted off, and that's how that's how you would deal with it. But yeah, then we got stopped again, so we ended up getting stopped 10 minutes each time. Anyway, we get there, and it is now, I'm pretty sure at that point the match is almost over, and we're, like I say, in a way lucky that England didn't get through. Or lucky that England wasn't in the final. But we still kind of are worried that we might hear the result just around. So what ends up happening is my dad and I, because we're the ones who really care about it, are just listening to obviously my phone, because I'm a millennial who listens to things quite often on my phone. So I'm just listening to my music. My dad ends up using my sister's phone, because he obviously doesn't have, well, not necessarily obviously, but doesn't have a kind of portable music player and headphones of his own. The funny thing is my sister's music is the kind of stuff that my dad would hate. It's kind of a very generic clubby rap. The type of stuff you would have heard. What was that club that was Duchess?
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, Fat Fridays.
It was the overall point.
The overall point is, yes, that we get there, and we. Oh, and also actually one final fact. I almost saw the result because our recorder is sometimes stupid because it's very old, and what it will sometimes do is it only starts recording after you've turned it on, and it's supposed to kind of record, obviously it's never actually off, it's just in standby mode. And when it's in standby mode, it's supposed to record. But sometimes it will only start recording once you've turned it off standby mode. So I turn it on, go on to watch the Croatia-France match. I hear someone say, oh, they've played some great football. It's like people shaking hands, hugging. And I'm like, oh crap, this is the end. And I go off as quick as possible. But yeah, I didn't see anything to give away who won. And then, of course, I don't know if you already revealed this, but we found out that France won. I think you did already say that. I can't remember.
Yes,
I was telling
did
that
say
story
that.
for a long time.
Yeah. So that was the struggles for you watching the World Cup final. And obviously you're right. If England were in it, that would have been a fucking nightmare. Because it's this is the first time in 52 years we would have been in a World Cup final and you would have been unable to see it.
Yes.
So that would have been quite shit. But thankfully England got knocked out, so it was okay.
Good old England.
Yeah. So France won in a game against Croatia, 4-2. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to talk about France for a little bit. So obviously France are a team coached by Didier Deschamps. They have a really talented squad. A squad that at the start of the tournament I was looking and saying this is probably up there with Brazil. Those two are the best teams in this tournament. But I didn't fancy France, and the first game obviously when they only beat Australia 2-1 sort of confirmed what I thought. I didn't think they were coached very well, and this is because Didier Deschamps decided instead of playing Ousmane Dembele or Nabil Fekir at left mid, he instead decided to play Blaise Matuidi, who is like a defensive central midfield player.
And sounds like a leprechaun.
Yeah, and sounds like a leprechaun. So basically what you have, and also we had Olivier Giroud up front, who is like a target man. You had all these talented French players like Dembele and Fekir and Griezmann and Mbappe, and it just seemed like we weren't getting the most out of them. And that, like I said, the game against Australia confirmed it. but obviously they went on to win the tournament. And yeah, I just think that this French team, they have just so much talent that I think it's a shame that they played the way they did. And it's kind of an indictment on international football that this French team could actually play the way they did and win the tournament while not getting the best out of them. Like, that's the thing. Like, some teams are some teams aren't that talented.
As
examples,
individuals.
Yeah, as individuals, like Sweden. And Sweden, you have to play defensive style if you want to win the tournament. But with France, they didn't have to. But it turned out the best way to win was actually not to play to their attacking strengths and actually just play defensive and let the attacking players, do something incredible. Or score from a set piece like Umtiti did against Belgium. Obviously, in the final, you had Pogba and Mbappe do some, really good stuff with their goals. So I was disappointed in France. Obviously, like, they scored 4 goals in the final and against Argentina. So, how can they be, so defensive if they do that? But like the game against Belgium, it was just a 1-0 slog of a game. And even against Uruguay, it was 2-0. But obviously, one of the goals was a calamitous mistake from the Uruguayan keeper Muslera. Overall, I think France, I don't know if they're deserved winners, because I don't think, you should be able to play defensive football when you should be at your best playing attacking football and still win. It's not nice to see. But I guess, hey, they won. And I guess that, Deschamps overall is a pragmatist. And, being a pragmatist wins instead of trying to play great football. It's just a shame that it worked.
Yeah, a few things. First of all, I remember one of the big things, on the subject of kind of teams made up of talented individuals versus teams that kind of play or kind of forced to play well as a team. One of the criticisms I heard several times of Belgium while they were playing was, especially during the group stages, they have loads of talented individuals. Can they put that to good use? And of course, in that case, again, talented individuals won out. I think Belgium were probably Belgium would have been better winners, because in Belgium's case, it was they were the criticism I guess you could have is that they weren't playing as a team. They were playing I don't know. I mean, maybe that's not, but it was kind of a sense of it's just a team with loads and loads of great players, and you throw them all together and they win football. But they were actually playing to their strengths as players. Whereas I see your criticism of France. I guess it is something that does happen. I think my recollection is Italy. I see Italy do it quite a lot, play very defensively. I mean, I guess Italy isn't a world-class team ever since the 30s.
But that's the thing. Italy, that's in their culture, though. It's in their culture to play defensively. Yeah. That's what the best Italian teams have been. Like, France, that isn't in their culture. Like, they're not like a defensive-oriented, country. They Brazil's got attacking flair, that's the stereotype. And with Italy, it's defensive. Like France, they just happen to be a really good team this time around. And I just think it's that's how you win. Like with Belgium, I agree. I would have liked to see them win more than France, and I think that's just because even though Belgium had some issues in defence, they honestly tried to attack, they tried to score goals, and France, I guess they won, so they don't care, and the Deschamps won't care, and the French people don't care. But it's something that I think in future tournaments you might see teams just adopting this French approach more and more. It doesn't even matter if this team has got so much attacking talent and could rip teams 3 or 4-0. We're just going to play defensively because that's how you win in international football. And obviously, that's what happened in 2016 with Leicester. Thankfully, it was a great story, but I don't want teams to copy the Leicester formula because I don't want Leicester's formula of defensive counter-attacking football to be the formula for the most successful teams, because otherwise football will just be more boring. And that's what I'm worrying with France. This could be the start of a trend of say in 2022, all the teams that underperform, like Brazil, they just go defensive. They work on getting set piece goals. The same goes for maybe Belgium, and obviously England if we have the talent to do that. But yeah, it's very. It's sad for football, and I really hope it doesn't continue.
Yeah. I think in some sense, football is a lot like war in that there are waves of strategies. So as y'all know, in various periods of history, there have been various military approaches, and it's kind of hard to understand it. For example, in the classical era, there were huge armies of 200,000 men, and yet 1,000 years later, in 1300, a typical army was only 10,000 men, and for example, you had certain people who use horses. And the thing is, what it always is it's that one strategy gets tried, and it works, and everyone kind of copies it, and then the next imperative becomes, well, how do we break down that strategy? One of the things I remember with kind of Iceland is that I think I remember. So Iceland were really strong in the air. Like one of their whole things is the throwing the ball in. And I remember the first couple of teams, Iceland only played 3 teams, but I remember the first team Iceland played kept doing long corners, like into the box, and they weren't doing anything. And I remember the commentator saying, well, what you need to do to break down a team like this, which obviously makes sense, is play a short corner, pass around them, and that's how. And then obviously, I think pretty much every goal, looking back on it, that Iceland conceded, it was people quote walking it in almost. Like a lot of the goals they conceded were people kind of passing it. Literally, a guy dribbled it around the goalkeeper. But that's how you beat. So it's kind of like, I guess the imperative in some sense is on the coaches to identify what the latest kind of thing that everyone's doing is, and think, well, we need to be able to make our team the one that can beat that. And that's so obviously, I guess that will only become the effective strategy once more people do it. So I suppose the kind of downside is that, possibly in 2022, everyone will be doing what you're saying with France. I guess the one upside is that eventually, once everyone's doing it, then it will be, this is the thing we have to train to beat.
Yeah, that's the thing. In football, there are cycles. Like you had, for example, recently Spain in 2010 and 2012, and obviously 2008, and Barcelona around the same period with their tiki-taka football, which was really pleasing on the eye, and, could break down like the best defences in the world. But now I think defences have got more organised, and obviously we've seen teams like Leicester, and you brought up Iceland, like obviously getting to the Euros and getting to the World Cup this year. They've used this like defensive and then counter-attack approach and goals from set pieces really effectively, like these defensive reactionary tactics. But the problem is when big teams adopt these strategies which are meant for the little teams, and the big teams are more successful because they've adopted these strategies that are meant for the little teams, like France did. And that right there is a problem. And I don't know what you can do. Like, if every team is playing defensive at the 2022 World Cup and is very good on the counter-attack, and they're well drilled, I don't know, like, you're gonna have to have like an overwhelmingly incredible attacking team to break down like 3 of these teams in a row if you're going to go on to win the World Cup. I don't know. Maybe that'll be the case, because like football does come in cycles. In the 90s and the 80s, like football was very defensive. Then it started to get more attacking. And in the late 90s, in the 70s, obviously there was the Dutch team, the Johan Cruyff, which played beautiful football, total football, that's what it was called, a lot of attacking stuff there. So yeah, maybe it will come in cycles, and in 2022 we'll have an attacking team who wants to score goals, whose primary objective is we get the ball and we create opportunities, and maybe they'll win. But I just do worry that we're going to go through a period now of teams getting goals in the counter-attack, then putting 10 men behind the ball and getting goals from set pieces, and that's how they win when it comes to knockout competitions, like the World Cup.
Do you have anything else to say about France-Croatia? Because
well, I was just going to say a couple of things about France. Obviously, there's Paul Pogba, who, who he plays for, right, Michael?
Okay, so I'm gonna like an idiot here because I'm not like great with club football. I remember he used to play, or he played like recently for Man United.
He still does.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
He still does. So Paul Pogba has been derided in the English press for not being that good a footballer. I remember actually last year I was watching a bit of that game show on BBC One, Question of Sport. That was it. And people had to guess, so this person was giving out clues to like a professional sports person or sports team, and the people in the panel had to guess what they were. So he said about Paul Pogba, I think it was Phil Tufnell, he was reading out clues or thinking of clues to say about Paul Pogba, and he said like, he's not that good at football, obviously.
Yeah.
And I was like, really, is that what people think of when they think of Paul Pogba? And like, he started off the 2017 season really well, but got injured and never recovered. And he didn't have that great season for Man United, considering he's their most expensive signing, and there's so much pressure on him to perform, and then he goes and wins the World Cup. And like a lot of the criticism that he's received over the last 2 years, I was just so happy for him that he won, because hopefully like people will now accept like what a great player he is, and people will actually give him the respect that he deserves, because he is one of the best midfielders in the world, and he's so vital to Manchester United, and he is underrated, and him having a fantastic game in the World Cup final, and in my opinion, he was man of the match. I just think, I was very pleased with Paul Pogba.
Yeah, I obviously don't have as much of a kind of investment in that issue, because obviously I don't support Man United. But yeah, I agree, he played well.
Yeah. Have you seen the Graham Souness memes?
No.
No. Okay. So basically, Graham Souness hates Paul Pogba because, well, I think it's because he used to play for Liverpool, and Paul Pogba, is a flashy player, and Souness hates that because he's one of those, Brexit people. I don't know if you voted for Brexit, but he's kind of like in the old school mentality of, players shouldn't be fancy, especially central midfielders shouldn't be fancy and do all these tricks. They should just, not enjoy themselves while they're on the pitch. So yeah, it was good to see Paul Pogba do well, especially because it annoyed Graham Souness, I imagine. And I also want to talk about one more French player, Michael. One more.
Mbappe.
Yes, Mbappe. Yeah. What do you think of Mbappe?
Really good. He's the youngest person to score in a final since Pelé.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the youngest person to score in a final since Pelé, and the first time, I believe, since Pelé, that a teenager has scored 2 goals in a World Cup knockout, which was him against Argentina when they won 4-3. So Mbappe looks like he's the rising star in world football, and indeed, I think he is not even one of the best young players in the world, one of the best players in the world, period. I was thinking recently, Michael, actually, we'll get into Messi and Ronaldo later, but after them, who's the next great player that would capture the minds of people around the world and kids will look up to? And I was like, Neymar kind of, but I don't know if he's if Neymar's the best player in the world, it'll be alright, but we've had better players who have been the best player in the world. And Mbappe, he could be one of the all-time greats, top 5 footballers ever. I know he's only 19, so obviously, he's very young, but he's just got so much talent, and I'm very thankful that he's so good, because it's yes, football is once again for the next decade going to be in good hands with Mbappe, and obviously him and Neymar play for the same team, so it's going to be interesting to see which one of those is the top dog next season for PSG. But yeah, Mbappe has now risen to the minds of every casual football fan in the world. He's one of the best players in the world, and yeah, I think very got stuff for the tournament, and we could have seen the first tournament in a long line of successful tournaments there with Mbappe. We could have watched history there. I don't know, maybe he won't turn out to be amazing, but he certainly looks really, really good.
Yes. And anything else to say about France-Croatia? Because I have one thing. Well, kind of 2 things.
Well, we were going to talk about Croatia for a bit.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we should talk about Croatia. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Did you have anything to say about France? Because I'm done. I think it was also done.
No, yeah, I think we're done with France.
Okay, so Croatia. Obviously, they got to the final, even though they were probably maybe the 10th best team. If you were ranking teams before the tournament, they were probably about the 10th in terms of how good they were, but exceeded expectations, made it to the final. A country of only 4 million people managed to get there. So yeah, what do you think of Croatia in this tournament, Michael?
Well, they were. I mean, obviously they weren't really on my radar at first. Obviously, their first match I remember was against Nigeria. Didn't really think about anything. I think it took a while for me to even think about them. I guess I thought about them when they played Iceland, because I think I was keen to see Iceland win. And at the time I kind of thought, well, Iceland, if they can, hold their own against Argentina, if they can beat England in the Euros, I mean, obviously England aren't great, but, if they can beat England in the Euros, yeah, they should be able to beat Croatia. And I believe they lost by, okay, now I'm going to have to find something out.
I think drew, what was the score between Croatia and Iceland? Was it 2-1 or 2-2?
I'm going to look this up.
You're going to look this up. While you do that, I'll just say, obviously, like you, Croatia played their first game against Nigeria, so that would make sense. That's
2-1 to Croatia, actually.
2-1 to Croatia, so they won all their group games.
Yes.
Because obviously, that's the thing, they beat Nigeria 2-0, and I believe that was Saturday night, so that there had been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games played. So that was the 8th game that they played, and that was the first win, like a comfortable win, a 2-0 win. Obviously, Russia beat Saudi Arabia like 5-0, but that's Saudi Arabia. They were awful, but like this, Croatia comfortably dispatched Nigeria, and it was easy. And that's what got me thinking, like maybe Croatia are a dark horse, because that's all you need to do. You just need to win comfortably and like look decent. And obviously against Argentina, they fucking won 3-0.
Yeah.
And that was like, wow, Croatia are actually really good. I didn't expect them to get to the final, but I was like, yeah, this Croatia team, like they've got a chance at going really far.
See, the reason why that didn't put them on my radar is because that was kind of being presented as and interpreted as like, look at how bad Argentina is.
Yes.
Look at the line was, I remember during that match, it was a zoom in of Messi, and it was like even with him, Argentina can't beat Croatia, and that was like the whole thing. So yeah, I do agree. Like that was proof that you don't mess with Croatia. But also, I think at that point it was like, well, look how terrible Argentina is. They can't even beat Croatia.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Like, now look, Argentina probably feel like, oh, well, we lost to the second best. We're a great team.
Argentina,
they got knocked out by the winner.
Yeah,
and then they lost to the the finalists.
Maybe Argentina weren't that bad then.
Yeah, maybe Argentina should have been third place.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe they weren't that bad. But the thing is, obviously, with Croatia, then they went against Denmark. They drew 2-2 on 1 on penalties. Then they went against Russia.
Oh, can we talk about... Actually, no, I'll talk about that later. No, I'm going to talk about it now, okay.
Go on.
Can we talk about... I want to complain about... Because I remember watching that. Do you remember the foul? Denmark... when Modric... Okay, so basically this is what happened.
For the penalty?
Yeah, Croatia broke. The guy for Denmark basically just fouled
yes.
I think it was Modric.
I think no, Modric played the pass. I believe it was Rebic who got the foul.
Yeah, and he literally just like hit him, and then he didn't get a red. And,
do you know they changed the rules?
Yeah, see, I find that really weird because it's kind of like, well, at that point, there's very little reason not to just like foul someone when they've got away with the ball. I mean, obviously he's got a penalty, but at the end of the day, they didn't score the penalty, so.
So the distinction is that if you are going for the ball, then it's not a red.
Yeah.
You're the last man. But the thing is, I think they should change that.
Yeah.
So if you are, it does not matter if you were going for the ball or not. If it was outside the box, but if it's inside the box, it should matter because if it's inside the box, then it's a penalty, and like they're already probably going to score. But if you think about it, you can foul someone and go for the ball if you're the last man outside the box. You just pick up a yellow card, and it could be a free kick like 25 feet from the goal.
And also, I mean, going for the ball is incredibly subjective. Like you can, I mean, obviously, I mean, basically, it stops you from punching the guy in the face, probably, but you can take their ankles out, and as long as you take their ankles out in the rough direction of the ball, like obviously, and then of course they miss. And I remember I was kind of thinking to myself, in a weird masochistic sense, I was thinking I almost want Denmark to win on the penalties just to kind of hammer in how ridiculous it is that, I mean, how sensible it was for that Denmark player to foul Croatia. Just because it would be interesting. But obviously, they did end up winning anyway. So, but yeah, I do remember that and thinking that was funny.
Yes. So obviously, if Denmark had have gone through, then it would either have been Denmark or Russia in the semi-finals of the World Cup.
Insane.
It was fucking crazy. We told someone before that. Obviously, then Croatia got through against Russia, the hosts. Again, drawing 2-2 and winning on penalties. That game.
I mean, the obvious thing about Croatia, sorry, I assume you're going to mention this, is that they played a whole extra game.
Yes.
Because they played so much extra time.
Yeah, they played a whole extra game, and even in the semi-finals against England, went to 120 minutes. Obviously, they didn't have to do penalties this time. That's the thing, though, with Croatia. They were like, they inched past Denmark and Russia, obviously on penalties, but in both games, they were the better team, probably, and Russia, there was a wonder goal that Russia scored against them. Against Denmark, there was some bullshit as well. I'm hoping the score was 2-2 between Croatia and Denmark and not 1-1. And I hope I'm not making that up. Because if that is the case, that'll be embarrassing.
It was 1-1.
It was 1-1. Wow. So they didn't draw 2-2 with Denmark.
This is why, Luke, you should have let me go through all the scores first. See what happens, Luke? There you go.
So, but that's just the fine lines of international football. What if Croatia got knocked out against Denmark in the round of 16. It would have been a disappointing tournament, and we would have said, you know what, this Croatia team wasn't actually that good. They had promise with Modric and Rakitic and Mandzukic, but you know what, for whatever reason, they just didn't manage to put it all together. But now they got to the final, and it's like the greatest Croatian team of all time.
Yeah,
they got knocked out on penalties by Denmark in the round of 16. Like the lines between success and failure in these tournaments are just so thin.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the other funny thing is how embarrassing for England that they had to beat Russia and Denmark and like you say, yeah, they played better against Russia and Denmark and had to win on through luck on penalties, and yet they played not bad, but probably I think the difference between in the Russia and Denmark matches and the difference in the England match, I think we were probably equally as good, maybe just not quite. I mean we were dominant, for example, in the big period of the first half. We should have scored a lot of goals against them. So
we should have got 2.
Yes,
that's Harry Kane should have scored. But yeah, so I think Croatia, like early on, because of that win against Nigeria and the way they dispatched Argentina, although after that, like they were a well-known quantity, I was thinking they were a dark horse. Like around that period, I was thinking of making a bet on them because back in 2014, like they were my Colombia of 2014. So Colombia in 2014, they had a really good start. They were playing really good football, and I was like, well, there's no team here like I can see that's really doing well. Why couldn't Colombia go and win the World Cup? And they got knocked out by Brazil in the quarterfinals 2-1, and obviously would have faced Germany in the semis and they would have lost. But that's what I was thinking. Like in this World Cup, like Croatia, they could be the Colombia, but for me anyway. Like they could be this team which, if things go right, like because no other team were performing that well, to be honest. Like same as 2014, in this World Cup in 2018, there's no like standout team. This could be, Croatia could go on and win it. And obviously, I didn't bet, but if I did, I would have, been very happy with myself because they almost did it.
Have you heard this will interest you. There's a guy on YouTube called Jeffabel, and he kind of does, he's from Perth, Australia. He does jackass style stunts. And one of them he did was he bet $3,000 that Croatia would win and got a tattoo, like a huge tattoo on his back that said Croatia World Champions 2018. And obviously it was just like, and then he bet he would eat his hat if they lost. And obviously they got to the final, and as someone who kind of, watched this guy on YouTube, and he also became kind of like a minor, like there was news stories about him in Australia. But, obviously, once they got to the final, it was kind of crazy because it was like, wow, maybe this won't be, this thing that seemed to be just a stupid stunt might actually make him, the odds were he would have got 22,500 quid.
Wow.
And then obviously they lost, and he uploaded the video where he ate his hat. But yeah, so that's just on the subject of betting for Croatia. Good thing you didn't, Luke, because then you would have to eat your hat.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I probably made more money off of it from the exposure, which is always the case with stupidity. Exactly. So well done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the perfect result then. Get to the final, then lose, so you have to film him eating a hat, and everybody says, wow, what a genius. Like, you thought Croatia could get to the final.
What a genius as he throws up fragments of his hat fabric.
Wow, that guy's really smart. Yeah. So obviously with Croatia, there were obviously some really good players that got through to the final, and that's the thing with World Cup teams that aren't usually in the final / semi-final throughout history. For example, Croatia made the semi-finals in 1998 as well. And you look at these teams in 1998 with Croatia, and in 1994 with Bulgaria, made the semi-finals there, and 2002 with Turkey, and it's kind of like, well, these teams, like obviously Turkey and Bulgaria didn't even qualify for this World Cup, and they didn't qualify for the previous. How can they, how did they get through to the semi-finals? And you look and you see, it's because they had, Stoichkov for Bulgaria, and for Croatia they had some fucking guy who I can't remember. But basically you had, some really talented players, and that's why this team got through to the semi-finals or the final of the World Cup when they normally wouldn't. With Croatia, obviously they had, Mandzukic and Rakitic and a potential Ballon d'Or winner in Luka Modric. And that would be interesting, actually, if Modric does win the Ballon d'Or, because obviously he got to the final with Croatia, won the Golden Ball, best player of the tournament, won the Champions League with Real Madrid. Will Modric, because he's the best midfielder in the world, will Modric win the Ballon d'Or this year? Will the voters finally think, you know what, too much of Ronaldo and Messi, this guy, he is the best player in the world? Because I think he's got a chance of it now. I don't know if you followed the Ballon d'Or race closely, Michael.
I do not, but I know what it is. I don't follow it.
Yeah.
Basically, is the answer.
Well, yeah. In some, basically, it's just whoever's the best footballer in the world. Messi and Ronaldo won it for the last 10 years. So
Yeah.
if Modric won it would be like seismic. That whoa, not Ronaldo or Messi won this thing. So yeah, basically Modric. Like if we look back in the tournament in 20 years' time and we see Croatia in the final, and it's like, oh, how did Croatia get to the final? They didn't even get out of the group stage in this one. We can say, it's because they had Modric and Rakitic, and that's what I like. For example, if
Yeah.
England got to the final, they're like, well, who do England really have? I mean, maybe some of these players will grow into like world class players, but there's only like Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Who's that great? So you know what? I'm glad Croatia did well. You know, this was their golden generation, and
Yeah,
unlike
I was going to mention that.
Yeah. Unlike previous golden generations, they lived up. You remember England in 2006?
I don't actually remember 2006 that well, to be honest, Luke.
Well, we had our golden
I
generation.
didn't watch every single match in 2000. I started watching every single match in 2010.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah,
I mean, obviously I
2006.
remember what happened. I
It
remember
wasn't
when
great.
they went out, my neighbour threw his England top in the bin.
That makes sense. There was so much hope in 2006. There was so much hope. It was our golden generation, and we got knocked out in the quarterfinals after just barely getting through it. It was awful. Like in this World Cup, at least Croatia's golden generation delivered, and even Belgium's golden generation. They came third, which is like their best result ever, I think. So yeah, I do like it when golden generations succeed, because then it gives other countries like who maybe aren't at the top of their game like a chance. Or for example,
Yeah.
like a team like Switzerland, say, if they get a golden generation of players, it gives them hope that they can maybe get to the final of the World Cup. And it's
Yeah.
not just reserved for like France, Brazil, Spain, and Germany.
Exactly. And the other thing I wanted to say is that, like, kind of what you're saying there is one of the reasons, we're going to talk about this a bit, but it's one of the reasons why I like the World Cup in particular and kind of national sporting competitions. And it's because, obviously, there can be variations, but one of the concerns in club football is that there's a sense in which the team that does the best gets more money, which means they can buy better players, which means, like, for example, there's kind of a snowballing sense. And obviously,
Yes.
yeah, like I say, there is a lot of variation, but it's kind of a sense of, like, you know that a team that's doing really well is always going to do pretty well because they've got a lot of money. A team that's doing really badly, and it's going to take very long times for changes to happen.
Yeah.
In international football, as I guess you can imagine, I'm going to say, you can have one really great player
Yeah.
start playing for a team, and he starts playing for that country just because he was born in that country. So Croatia, or say, for example, Greenland, if suddenly, tomorrow in Greenland, some
I think they
kid...
played for Denmark there, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah, actually, that's probably true, yeah. But, so a team that's pretty irrelevant can just have a player, or maybe a group of players who do play really well, and suddenly, they've gone
Yes.
from, never having played in the World Cup
Yeah.
to almost winning it, whatever.
Yeah, like Switzerland, that would be a good example, I think, or like even Denmark, fucking Finland, I don't know, just these random countries, like Chile. They won the Copa America a few years ago with Sanchez and Vidal. Like, it's great, and that's the reason why I'm so glad I'm a Man United fan. And obviously you can change teams if you want, but I've always been a Man United fan, and I say I'm lucky because, I'm glad, because they are always going to be good. Like, no matter what, unless there's a massive scandal and the club has to shut down. And even then, like, they'll probably recover. Like, Man United are always going to be good. They're always going to be around the top of the Premier League, buying the best players in the Champions League, even though for a couple of seasons, like recently, we weren't. But for the most of the time, we're going to be really successful. If you happen to be a fan of, like, West Brom, your life's going to be, like, in terms of football, fucking miserable, because what can you expect from West Brom? Like a 14th position in the Premier League?
Yeah.
That's, like, what's going to happen on average? Like, that's why I prefer the way American sports work, where like teams rebuild through the draft. There's no relegation, but there's like 30 teams in a league in like the NBA, NFL, MLB. So 30 teams, I think that's enough to go around for everybody. And basically, your team 1 year can be shit, but like 5 years later, they can be amazing. It's not the case with club football, and
Yeah.
obviously it's the case with the World Cup, which is one of the reasons why we like it, why it's so popular.
Yeah, so are we... Oh, the final other thing I wanted to say about Croatia, by the way, is just building off of the fact that, I mean, number one, it's their golden generation, and number two, they played so much extra time. It's worth noting,
Yes.
this was an incredibly old team. Like, I mean, Mandzukic
Yes.
is early 30s.
Yeah, so's Modric.
Yeah, and yet they played probably more football than anyone else in the whole tournament, and yet they did so well. So,
Yeah, that's another
well
reason.
done them for not dying of a heart attack.
Yeah, that's another reason why I'm glad Croatia won. It's because, like, this is their last chance. Modric 32, Mandzukic, like you say, early 30s. In 2022, these players would be well past their prime, and who knows, Croatia might not even qualify because Modric may have retired by then.
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't
don't
be
know.
surprised.
Yeah, I don't know, but like, so I'm glad they managed to do it before their window closed. And obviously, just last thing on France and Croatia, the final, a 4-2 win for France. It was very entertaining. You consider the last two World Cup finals 1-0 victories.
Yeah, I was going to say that was shocking too. Yeah, the fact that it usually is like very pretty much one goal decides it.
Yes.
Was exciting.
Yeah, it was. I think it was exciting. Like, it was just fantastic. A really great spectacle. And obviously, considering what had gone before it, like, I wasn't expecting much of the fight. I thought, like, France are going to win 1-0. Like, if you told me before the game it's going to be 4-2, I would have been like, that's not going to happen. Like, the last time there was 6 goals in a World Cup final was 1966.
Yeah.
The only who won then, didn't we?
Yeah.
That was 52 years ago. Like, literally half a century of fucking World Cup final matches, and there have never been as many goals as that. So, that was a rare treat. We might not see a final that entertaining for another, 50 years, and that's not even exaggerating.
One final, you said last thing on the World Cup, the final. There's one thing that I do think we need to talk about, which is the free kick and the penalty decision.
I was going to talk about VAR later, but if you want to talk about...
we can save it for later. I was just thinking, obviously, we do need to talk about it because just to set up kind of the whole thing.
We can say Croatia were unlucky.
Yes, a lot of people have said that both decisions were wrong. A lot of people have said definitely at least one decision was wrong. Should we move on to...
Yeah.
It's like, especially since we have done... we have spent, I think, 55 minutes talking about... We could have literally done a select and reflect on the France and Croatia match.
Yes. Obviously, I think, because they made the final, I think it's worthy of it. Especially fucking France because they won it. But yeah, I think now, Michael, we should talk about... I don't think I'm even being biased here. I think probably the biggest story... I won't say the biggest story to come out of the World Cup. I'll say the second biggest story to come out of the World Cup, I think, which is England. Yeah. Because I think France winning, that's the biggest one. But I don't think a lot of people actually cared about Croatia that much. They're a decent team, I guess. And we said, how good they are and how well they played and how unlucky they are. But, fucking England getting to the semi-finals of the World Cup, the first time in 28 years. When England last got to a World Cup semi-final, it wasn't going to be 6 years until I was born. That's how long it's been, and I'm in my early 20s now as a you. It's just incredible that we got here. I kind of pinched myself when I was watching us play in the semi-finals. It's this may not happen for another 28 years. I never really expected England to be in the semi-finals of the World Cup. It's it was disappointing that we got knocked out, but we'll look back on this and say, wow, that was incredible that we got this far.
Yeah, I felt like I was having some kind of otherworldly experience at some point. So I was like, what if I've died and I've gone to heaven?
I remember before the World Cup, I was talking with my parents. I can't remember why this came up, but we were saying about how many people would tune in to a World Cup final if England were playing. What would be the viewership number? And I said, was it about 30 million? But I was I never actually considered, especially in 2018, that would be something that I would have to consider. It was England could actually be playing in a World Cup final. I just wasn't prepared for it. You're just not prepared for the possibility. We were literally half an hour away from a World Cup final.
Yeah.
England in a World Cup final would have just been absolutely insane. I would have never expected it to happen. It was so close to happening.
Yes, and it's really, to be honest, it should have happened. I guess I always say Croatia is a good team, but arguably, especially Harry Kane should have scored. And if he would have scored, I think it would have been hard for Croatia
Harry
to come
Kane
back.
should have scored.
Yeah.
But I can't be too upset because Croatia were the better team overall. They were definitely easily the better team in the second half, and in the last half an hour of extra time, they were the better team as well there.
Well,
there was just... I can't complain. Maybe we'll look back and say, you know what, it wasn't Brazil, we lost, it was Croatia, but then I can say, well, we watched the game, England weren't as good as Croatia, so I can't actually be that upset.
Yeah. One thing on kind of why it being a big story, one of the things that I think is worth every English person reminding themselves is that England matters. England, no matter what, no matter how down and out we get, England will always matter. And apart from anything else, the first thing is, this is an easy thing to forget because everyone plays it. We invented association football. Yeah.
Yes,
We-
that's
I
a
mean,
good
we-
segue.
We invented a lot of sports, but yeah, we did invent football, and that means that at the end of the day, that's why we use the term "it's coming home," because
Yeah.
it is. When we win the World Cup, it's coming to the place where it all started. Everyone, and the other thing is, just an aside, football when a French and a German person argue with an Italian referee, I'm betting that they do it in English.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
like, so I mean, that's the thing, like, obviously,
that's just our influence though around the world.
Yeah.
It's not really a lot to do with football.
yeah, I know, it's just, yeah, but it's a sense in which, like, England winning would matter more than Croatia winning. England winning would matter more than
Yes.
Iceland winning. Even like a shock result, I think, England winning would be like, and also, I mean, the other thing is, I guess it's worth saying, we're possibly more universally hated in Europe, is given recent events. I remember one of the people we met in Bruges, because we met some people in Bruges, and they'd been interrailing, and they were in Germany during the Slovakia match, and they said literally, like, England scored first, obviously, and they kind of cheered, no one reacted. When Slovakia scored, it was a German club, or German kind of like, I don't know, pub or restaurant or whatever, and the entire place like erupted with cheers, because everyone hates England, basically. So even though they hate us, Luke, number one, they hate us because they ain't us, because we're gonna leave.
World Cup.
Yeah, we're gonna leave the EU and we're gonna find all these deals, the best deals, elsewhere, and that's why they hate us. But number two, even if they do hate us, and I do think like a lot of them maybe hate us, I do think like obviously France hates us, but a load of kind of continental European countries have an animosity towards England. But even then, still means they care about us.
Yeah, so I remember I was listening to a podcast, an American podcast, and I think the subject was basketball, but I can't remember. But basically, this guy was talking about the World Cup and the fact that the United States weren't in it. And they were debating like, oh, who are you going to support now that the United States aren't going to be in the World Cup? Which team should we root for? And one of the guys on the podcast said, I think I'm going to root for England because there's something, because he was a Red Sox fan. And he said there's something about England that reminded me of the Red Sox. And the idea with the Red Sox was they didn't win for like 80 years. Like they had failure after failure when, you know, like they should have won, and like when they eventually did win, I think it was in 2004, it was like this incredible moment for the city of Boston. Like they finally got over the hump and won a World Series, and that's what he compared England to. Like it was kind of like that, and I think that's, from a foreigner to have that perspective, I think it's really interesting because it's not just us who have this thing of 1966. That's like this sort of sacred thing. Like other people around the world realize that. Like 1966, we won it in our own country. It's the only win we ever had. We beat the Germans, like our rivals, 4-2. We had that incredible moment with.
I think most people, anyone who knows about football, knows about kind of the significance of kind of the history for England and the fact that, I do think part of that does have to do with the fact that, like I say, we did invent football. It is something that we, and also, I mean, the other thing I guess that should be mentioned is that the Premier League is the best league in the world.
Well, it's not the best, I'd say La Liga.
No, I'd say it's possibly the most interesting league in the world.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, definitely more interesting than La Liga. What about the Bundesliga?
You've got 6 teams that are good.
Yes. So it's a very interesting league, and it's a league that, I went to France, and there was someone in France, like French kids, who passionately, and I guess you know a lot about this, like everywhere in the world, passionately supported Man United. There are loads of people all over the world who support Man United, even though they have football teams in their own country. And there's literally, I think, zero chance that every single one of these people has a personal connection to Manchester. But then also, I think it's not just Manchester United. I think Manchester United has the reputation for it. Like there are a lot of foreigners who support Manchester United, but I think like there are a lot of people all over the world who support Premier League teams because the Premier League is the most interesting league to follow. And obviously that again leads people to realise how kind of important football is for England.
Yeah. That's the thing, like England, there's no other sport that comes close to football in England. And that I think is in like quite a few countries in Europe, obviously, and like America, and maybe not Brazil. I don't know like how much football is ahead in places like that.
Shooting people, gang warfare.
Yeah, but basically England is all about football, and we love football, and our national team, we've had so many disappointments, and that's why if England won the World Cup, it would actually just be incredible, not just for us, but for the whole the whole of the world,
Yeah.
I think, to see England win again and know and I think a lot of the world would understand the significance of England winning. They are some like special team, like, and maybe people hate us because we're arrogant, but like if we remove that bit of arrogance, like particularly from our media, like the press, if that wasn't there, I think they'd want us to win, and obviously our colonial history that may play a part in it as well. But if you remove that, like, I think they'd want us to win because it would just be such a great, like, romantic story of England winning the World Cup yet again. It's something extra special about England winning the World Cup compared to, say, like Italy or Germany again. And yeah, so I think obviously disappointing that we didn't win, but just like we were contenders. I just want to say actually though, Michael, you said like you mentioned the "It's Coming Home" thing.
Yeah.
When did you first catch on to that? Like
What is
the
it?
whole meme?
I think, to be honest, I think I caught onto it. Like, I don't think I remember when I caught onto it. I don't think I have an actual answer. I guess you do have an answer.
Yeah. So for me, it was actually before the World Cup. Like I watched those two. There's two like videos by I can't remember what the band's called, but it's
I know.
like
I feel like I should know it, but I'm gonna look it up.
it begins with an S, like
Yeah.
something S. Anyway, there was 3 Lions 96 and 3 Lions 98.
Yeah.
And I watched those two, and obviously it was like
The Lightning
damn
Seeds.
the lightning seeds. That was it. The lightning seeds. Yes.
That's
And-
why you thought S.
Yes. And obviously, those two videos, even though, or songs, whatever, those two songs, even though they were made 20 years ago, they still sum up how England fans feel today. And that was what I
30
was,
years of hurt.
yeah, I was like, you know what? That's it.
50
It's
years
still
of
relevant.
hurt. Now it's
Fucking
50 years of
50 years.
hurt.
50 years, it's still relevant even to this day. So I
Yeah.
looked at, so I was singing that, and it was like, oh yeah, 30 years of her. Me and Dylan actually constructed a parody for Russia.
That seems
Because
like
they were
something I could
hosting it.
easily imagine Dylan getting behind.
Yeah, the idea was global domination was coming home, because they used to dominate the world when they were the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
and now they're just like the 11th biggest country when it comes to GDP in the world.
Disaster.
I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But sorry, what?
Sorry, I was saying yeah. Is all.
Yeah, I don't know actually. Maybe they're higher, but yeah, they're not as relevant as they once were.
Yeah, I do think
Russia.
they're higher than. What did you say? 11th biggest
I said
country.
11.
Did you mean in terms of population or land area? Because you were definitely wrong about land area. They're still the biggest country in the world.
No,
Imagine
I
if they
meant-
had the Soviet Union. You meant.
I believe I said GDP.
Oh, did you say GDP? I wasn't paying attention at all.
Maybe
Yeah,
they're like third though.
I think they could be. I honestly think they could be lower or higher.
Yeah, well, basically that's what me and Dylan did parody. Actually, a minute.
Oh, it's a dog.
I gotta go because my dog's
That's okay. I need to get
in
some
my
water.
pants. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. 30 years ago. Okay, so obviously with England, there was the "It's Coming Home." Actually, we just talked about that before, and where I caught on.
We were talking about. I feel like we were literally just talking about what the GDP of Russia is.
Yeah. Anyway,
So
let's
maybe
just talk.
maybe just start like a
Yeah.
completely new thought, and it will
Yes.
hopefully work.
So the "It's Coming Home" thing, it became it became more than a joke, obviously, but at first it was like a meme and a joke,
Yeah.
which was actually like I don't want to say I can read like the tea leaves when it comes to our country's culture and our country's sort of memes and what we
You know what?
I don't-
Tea leaves is very appropriate because we do love our tea.
we do love our tea and what our country's like thinking, but I don't know, it's just the "It's Coming Home" thing seemed to like resonate with me as like maybe it's because it was 20 years ago, and obviously nostalgia starts like after 20 years, and those two songs came out in 96 and 98, but I don't know. And the thing is, like, obviously it could be because the reason why the "It's Coming Home" thing was so successful and obviously started off as a joke is because England, I think, had their lowest expectations at an international tournament since those songs came out.
Yeah.
If you look at 96, we got some semis, we were hosting it, a lot of, fucking people thought we could win that. 98, like, we had a really good team. Unfortunately, we got knocked out in the round of 16 by Argentina. Penalties, I believe. Or maybe not, I can't remember. 2000, I don't remember what happened there. I think we got knocked out by Portugal. I don't know. I remember we lost to Portugal in Euro 2000. Anyway, we didn't do well at that tournament, but we still had some good players. 2002, actually, that was a tournament which, looking back, Michael, like I like to do, we could have actually won. 'Cause I
That's
believe
the,
we
that's
were
the first one I have a personal recollection of.
Yeah, same. And that was that tournament right there. We got knocked out by Brazil in the quarterfinals, but I believe we were the second best team in that tournament. Because you look at 2002, the semis, they had Brazil, we played Turkey, and then there was Germany, South Korea. Now, Germany actually weren't that good in 2002. Like, they played like Paraguay, Ukraine, and obviously South Korea to get to the final. Like, Germany did not have like a hard path to the final, kind of like, I guess, England or Croatia this time around. And basically, they did not have a good team. And obviously, England beat them 5-1, like literally a year earlier, and they got to the final. Like, England, that was a missed opportunity. We could have really won that World Cup in 2002. And that, it's just a shame we had to meet Brazil in the quarters. 2004, we had Wayne Rooney coming on the stage. We got knocked out by, I think it was Portugal. I definitely think it was Portugal in this World Cup.
Yeah. Just to clarify for the record of people who don't know much about football but may still be listening to this podcast, you are talking about Euros and the World Cup.
Yes, Euros and the World Cup.
And 2000, 2004, 96 were all Euros.
Yes. Yeah. So the 2006 World Cup, like we said previously, it was the golden generation. It was like our best chance ever to win it. And we got knocked out in the quarterfinals by Portugal. I remember that one on penalties. 2008, we didn't qualify for the Euros, so I don't think that really counts. 2010, again, there was a lot of optimism that we could win in 2010 because we still had a lot of good players. Wayne Rooney was at the peak of his powers. Fortunately, we got knocked out by Germany.
Quarterfinals? Was it?
It was round of 16.
Oh, was it? Okay. I couldn't remember.
I remember my German teacher the next day rubbing it in. Like we'd lost.
I remember I had a German kid who sat next to me in maths, and they were rubbing it in too.
Yeah, makes sense. 2012, we got knocked out on penalties by Italy. I believe that was in the quarterfinals. Then in 2014,
didn't qualify, didn't get through group stages.
Group stage, 2016,
knocked out by
Iceland. Basically, we just had a long run of failure, and nobody expected anything from us in 2018. We just, even though like in the past we'd been knocked out like quite early on, for example in 98 and in 2010, we still thought before the tournament we had a better chance of winning those tournaments than we did the one in Russia in 2018. So I think the It's Coming Home thing was a parody of, England expectations. Traditionally we're quite arrogant and we're like, yeah, we're going to win, yeah, this is going to be like 1966 all over again, and obviously that's why I think it caught on well, because it was like, oh yeah, it's coming home, like, oh we beat fucking Tunisia, oh it's coming home now, like, yeah. Oh we smashed Panama 6-1,
it's coming home.
It's coming home. We lost to Belgium, but that means we're on the easiest side of the draw.
It's coming home. This is, you literally said all of this during our, and you said it with the same sarcasm. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh yeah, it was in a lay-by when we were playing Belgium, but now it's coming home again, even faster.
Yeah, it's like,
it was in the pit stop getting new tyres when we were playing Belgium.
Yeah, it was like, okay, then we were against Colombia and we lost. And we won
on penalties. Shootout. Yeah, I was not expecting that.
That right there, that is when it became not 100% a joke.
Yes.
And became like 25% serious. And that was a beautiful time between Colombia and Sweden. Those like 3 or 4 days or however long. When it was kind of like, oh, it's coming home, but it actually might be coming home because we're against Sweden in the quarters and they're not that great. And then we fucking beat Sweden easily and we're in the fucking semi-finals of the World Cup. And then It's Coming Home actually became serious. Like, we actually might have a chance at winning because we're in the semi-finals. And I believe if you're in the semi-finals, you have a right to think about winning the tournament because you are a contender at that point. I think there's a big difference between the quarters and the semis. Like, semi-finals, you get in, like, you can start to think about winning it. But actually, after the whole It's Coming Home thing had, stopped because we got knocked out, there was, like, accusations of it was arrogance that English arrogance that we were saying It's Coming Home. And of course, Michael, as you know, was like a joke.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have any expectations. Like, we were just bannering. Like, some people were so fucking dense, like, after that. It was just like, oh yeah, look at that, you thought it was coming home. I think one of the Croatia players said that or whatever.
Fuck Croatia.
Fuck Croatia. It was like, no, obviously it was a joke, and because we got to the semi-finals of the World Cup, that's why it became serious, because we fucking got that far. That's why it was serious, because we were in the semi-finals.
I remember once we were in the semi-finals, we had a 50% chance of winning, whereas now, next time we're in the semi-finals, we'll only have a 33% chance of winning, because we'll only have won 1/3 of the time we're in the semi-finals.
Yeah, it's like, damn, it almost came home. And that's the thing, like, although we...
That's another thing that we haven't mentioned about... well, actually, I think I mentioned it back when we were talking about football before. One of the other reasons why there was so much hype is because England have literally... the only times they've got done well at all is when they've won, basically. I mean, the only time we got to the final, we won. So that's why it's kind of like huge thing. Like, we're very used to getting... we're not used to getting to the semi-final and losing. We're not even that used to getting into the quarter-final and losing. For us, usually it's round of 16 and we lose. So to get beyond that, once we get beyond that, we're hyped. A bit hyped.
Yeah, we are hyped. Yeah. So basically with England, like the team overall was probably like, I said before, like the 8th best team in the World Cup. And so to get through to the semi-finals is fantastic. Like, you know, the It's Coming Home thing also fantastic. Like that's a month we'll never forget, basically, of being... I think it was such a likeable England football team as well, and we had this like It's Coming Home. We had this this I don't know, mantra. Is that how you'd say it? The It's Coming Home. Like,
mantra.
Yeah, this England team had that, and it was like so much belief and so much optimism. And it's like even if we do get knocked out in the semi-finals, which is of course what happened, hey, whatever. Like we got to the semi-finals of the World Cup first time in 28 years. So overall, for England, very successful. I think if things had gone a bit differently, like Kane scoring, he could have been in the final, and who knows then. And by the way, Kane didn't look good all tournament, by the way. I think he was carrying an injury. Like, he just did not look like himself. That may have hurt us, actually. But, you know, those are the thin lines. Like, the thing is, we could have got knocked out by Colombia.
Yeah, we easily could have.
Yeah, by the way, Colombia, what a fucking shit team, like.
Yeah, you know what?
They're a bunch of cunts, I'm sorry.
You know how you were saying, sorry, I'm just going to ignore your Colombia remark, but I agree with you. You know how you were saying, like, oh, it was so close for Croatia, they could have got knocked out. Like, that's kind of, like, imagine if we had won, and, like, looking back on it, it was like, but what if we'd lost to Colombia? I mean, obviously it's not as exciting now because we didn't win, but, you know.
Yeah. So, yeah, sum up on England. Great tournament. So many memories. Gareth Southgate, the waistcoats, fucking Jesse Lingard. Love that kid. From Warrington, by the way. Yeah, just an absolutely great tournament for England. And although we didn't win it, you know, in the end, football did come home because
it came home in our hearts.
It came home in our hearts. England national team finally, you know, became likeable again, and the people of England had pride in their national football team, which is what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
You know, in that Cool Runnings. When they lose, but they pick up the bobsled and they kind of carry it together and they walk through triumphantly. That's what it's sort of like. Yeah, we didn't win, but...
Yeah, like I reject what Mark Pugac said after the England-Croatia game. Where he's that's the guy who hosts the ITV football. You know?
Yeah.
You know that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Pugac. So he said like, oh, if we don't do well in the future, this is all for nothing. That's basically what he said. I'm paraphrasing. But I was like, no, it's not all for nothing. We made the fucking semi-finals of the World Cup. We had a great time. Like, these games are decided on such thin margins. Like, even if you're the best team in the World Cup, which I think was probably Brazil, we'll get into them later, but, like, even if you're Brazil, like, you can get knocked out in the quarterfinals like they did. Like, we got to the semi-finals of the World Cup. It's incredible. Nobody thought we'd go this far. Like, it was such a memorable tournament. We all had a great time. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, Mark Pugac, you're completely wrong. I enjoyed England playing football this tournament, and yeah, it was something I won't forget, and maybe we'll be forced to not forget because it may not happen for another 30 years. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the next It's Coming Home will literally be just about us getting to the semi-finals. Like, we're gonna get to the semi-finals. We're gonna get to the semi-finals. Like in 2088, people will be like, I don't know if that even works. Yeah, 2088. Yeah. People will be like, 50 years ago, we were in, it couldn't be 50 years ago, that wouldn't work. It would have to be 2078. There we go. And they'd be like, 40 years ago, we were in the semi-finals. We can do it again. Yes.
So there you go. That's England. I think we covered 3 major points we were going to talk about.
Yeah. Now we move on to Russia. Russia.
So, Soviet Russia. Thing is, obviously, the tournament beforehand was, before the football got started, there was a lot of talk about Russia hosting the World Cup. Sorry, not just Russia hosting the World Cup, obviously, but Russia hosting the World Cup in the background of, the doping in Sochi, or Sochi, however you say it, and the fact that Vladimir Putin had been a bit of a naughty boy recently, in terms of interfering in elections across the Western world.
And in terms
Brexit
of invading other countries,
Yeah, invading other countries, and the killing of journalists and all that. But he's been doing that for
what
a
a
while.
scamp.
Yeah, what a rogue, old Vladimir. So yeah, there was a lot of controversy around Russia and the fact that this fucking person, Vladimir Putin, shouldn't really get to host like the biggest spectacle on earth. What could it do for his PR or whatever? And should we really go to Russia? I don't think there was any serious notion that would happen, but there was certainly talks about whether we should boycott this World Cup, which I'm glad we didn't, obviously, because we got to the semis. But certainly, Russia wasn't the best place to be hosting this World Cup, I think. Nevertheless, the actual Russian national team did not have a lot of hope before the World Cup started. Some Russian newspapers were saying this is the worst Russian World Cup team ever. Nobody thought they did well. The Russian people didn't have a lot of hope in them. If they got out of the group stage, that would be a success. But they managed to get through to the quarterfinals and were literally a penalty shootout away from making it for the first time there. Oh no, they were the Soviet Union, so I don't think that counts. For the first time since they became Russia, to the semi-finals of a World Cup. And that would have been incredible. What do you think of Russia this tournament?
I thought it was good. I mean, there was part of me that was suspicious because I was thinking, what if there is something going on? Especially with the VAR element, there was a kind of thought of you don't know, a lot of important decisions are being made by people who you literally can't see, who are in, a closed-off room. You could say, how they say, with democracy, the more people you have, the less accountable it is. The more, it's not just one ref, it's all these different people. So it's kind of something could be going on. And obviously, I was kind of suspicious when they were doing really well in a way. And it was almost kind of ruining my enjoyment slightly. I couldn't, it was hard for me to be Russia, they're doing really well, isn't it? It's just, the thing is, if it was, say, for example, just picking obviously, if Iceland was hosting, or
you love Iceland.
Oh, let's go for Greece. If Greece was hosting the World Cup and they started doing really well, I'd be like, this is great, yeah, wonderful, love it.
Yeah.
Because Greece, no reason to doubt good old Greece.
Good old Greece, yeah, that was the case with South Korea.
Oh yeah, that's an obvious one. Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, when they got to the semis and obviously hosted it, and it was incredible, and there was no hard feelings towards them unless you were Italian, because South Korea got knocked out.
Or North Korea.
Rather dubiously by Italy. Yes, even though I've watched the highlights of that South Korea-Italy game, and I do not think Italy were treated as badly as some Italians will say. But anyway, Russia, there was this kind of element of they're doing well, the host nation, that's great. But you love it when the host nation does well. It's it's good for the fans, it's good for the whole tournament. But then again, there's something in the back of your mind which is but that means Putin's going to lift the World Cup, isn't it? Do we really want to see that? And with the VAR thing, there was jokes about how Putin's there was a camera on all the VAR referees in these wherever they were in Moscow, and just out of shot was this guy with an AK-47. Yeah. Just make sure you make the right decision here, boys. Whenever Russia were playing, and there was also one other thing that in the back of my mind, just whenever I saw Russia play, I just couldn't get it out, which was the doping.
Yes, that was the other big thing.
Yeah, so the thing is, as previously mentioned, in Sochi, Russia got all their gold medals taken away from them. All the medals, actually, because the IOC found out they were doping, and obviously that's against the rules. In this World Cup, there was no allegations of doping. However, looking at how much a team runs in a full 90 minutes and how many kilometers were travelled by each player at the World Cup, Russia were consistently top of those charts. In terms of distance ran per match, I remember seeing a chart from the first two games of the World Cup when each side had completed 2 games, and Russia had the 2 games that Russia had played, they had run the most, they were in the top 2, and quite a comfortable distance away from third place. And then if you look at the end of the tournament, or certainly after the quarterfinal stage, the top 5 players in terms of who ran the most distance, and Russia, all the players in the top 5 were Russian.
Yeah. So
you look at that, and you look at the history of doping, and you're kind of they might be doping.
Yes.
Against Croatia, they were really good in the 115th minute. Their players had so much energy, and it was a case of, well, this is great if they're not doping, but I can't get it out.
I was
that they might be
happy. I was
cheating.
really happy that Croatia beat them because I was like,
Yeah.
I remember I was thinking to myself. What I said to my dad is, I was like, I want Croatia to win because I'm worried because then we'll know that we have like a fair game. Yeah, if we're playing.
Yes.
But my dad was like, yeah, but if Russia's wins and if Russia loses, then we'll know that that their doping wasn't really having an effect. So therefore, we should have been playing.
No,
them.
that's not the case.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Like,
stupid man, isn't he?
yes, yeah, like the fact that you can like be so good in the 115th minute, they could have scored like easily. What if
Yeah.
they just got a lucky bounce their way? This is the thing. Like, if Russia beat Croatia, then they would face England in the semis, and maybe they beat England. Like, England weren't great this tournament. Like, they beat some good teams. England would still be the favourite, obviously, but it's not unheard of that Russia, or wouldn't be unheard of if Russia could beat like a team like England.
Yeah.
And then they're in the final, and then who knows in the final? Like, what if they win it?
Happen, yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
like,
and
it's
then
just one
Putin
game.
would probably, like, literally, I think he could remake the Soviet Union off the back of that.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, there was a serious possibility of Russia winning the World Cup. Like, when Mario Hernandez headed that goal in to make it 2-2 against Croatia, my mind was like, what if Russia actually go on and win this World Cup? And then it comes out afterwards that they were doping. Like, I don't want that to happen. I would, like, because I care about football and I really like it, I would probably, like, it would be worse for me to see Russia win the World Cup than it would be good for me to see England win the World Cup.
Yeah.
Assuming Russia were doping, obviously. Because then that would just ruin the World Cup. It would be just like, well, what the fuck is... That was just, like, horrible for football, this sport I really like. It's just shit. If the team that won were doping.
Yeah, I was thinking that. One final
Yeah.
thing, by the way, just on the subject of Russia, I don't know if you want to say anything else, but this is the final thing I wanted to say, because I was just thinking
Yeah.
about it. So I hope I'm right about this, there was a Spain v Russia in the round of 16.
Yes.
At the very last minute, I don't know if you remember this, Spain, there was a penalty call,
Yes.
and Spain didn't get it, and I
Yes.
think they should have got it.
I can't remember specifically,
Yeah,
but
I wish I could actually get up. It's actually
yeah, it was from a set piece.
one of the things I was looking for, but just as an aside, because obviously we decided to do this, I was looking for a lot of the kind of footage of all the different decisions that I thought were, dubious. It's very difficult to just find, like, clear replays. Like, you just find pictures of guys, for some reason, none of the, like, highlights include any of the complicated decisions. But anyway, basically all I'll say, seeing as we can't get it up, is that my recollection of it was that it was quite obviously, I think, a penalty, and it didn't get given, and it was a bit like, ooh, it's a bit...
Yeah, that's the thing with Russia. Like, just because of how corrupt they are as a country, like, I just couldn't feel good for them doing well. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And obviously, if their players didn't dope, you have to say well done. Like, getting to the quarterfinals was fantastic. Beating Spain, fantastic.
If their players did dope, then shame on you.
Yeah, well, maybe not even shame on the players because then maybe they were forced to. But, like, just shame on Russia in general. But obviously, they don't give a shit about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't
yeah.
want to be forced to dope because it can cause like serious health problems. Like, imagine that. Like,
Yes.
poor them. They've got to like they're all going to die from heart attacks because Vladimir Putin was, I want more trophies.
Yeah, in his Romanian accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to suck your blood.
Yeah, so overall on Russia, I'm going to give it tentative thumbs up. Quarterfinals well done, but I wouldn't have wanted you to win just because of the risk of the fact that you could have been doping.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's sums up my feelings on Russia. Next up, we've got Germany.
Germany. So, first of all, I think we should say the obvious fact that for the last 3 World Cups, the winner of the previous World Cup went out in the group stages. So, Italy went out in 2010, Spain went out in 2014, and now Germany has gone out in 2018.
Yes.
So, good fact.
These are all true. So, obviously, that means France are going to go out in 2022.
Well, that's what I was thinking, actually. That's another thing. If Croatia would have won, because you know how you were saying Croatia might not even qualify next.
Yes.
I was thinking if Croatia won, it would be very likely that they go out in the group stages and continue the trend.
Yeah. Like, that would be... yeah, I could see that happening, considering this seems to be some sort of curse.
Yeah, but it seems like, France, I don't know. It's the thing is, if France go out in the group stages next time, then like something crazy is happening.
Yeah, because they're quite young, France.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, Mbappe's 19, Pogba's 25. Like, but they're good enough to be there.
Yeah, my prediction is that it won't happen in 2022.
Yes.
But I guess I probably would have predicted that in all the other, so maybe that's a pretty worthless prediction.
This German team beforehand were actually nobody thought they were too old. They were like, a lot of players were like 28, 29 years old. Like, nobody who was really like 32 and maybe past it. Like, Toni Kroos had just come off winning the Champions League with Real Madrid. Fucking Muller and a lot of other Bayern Munich players had just won the Bundesliga yet again. Well, maybe that's not that big an achievement, because obviously Bayern Munich win the Bundesliga every year. But
Yeah.
point is, like, this German team, nobody was like, oh, yeah, they're not actually that good, or, you know, they're past their best. It was like, no, this German team could really win it again. You know, like, they've got a lot of talent, a lot of great players, like they normally do, and, you know, they could win it. But they went out in the fucking group stage, and they could have lost all 3 of their matches. They lost their first match against Mexico, which I remember watching that game when Mexico won 1-0. That was one of the fucking best games of the World Cup.
Really good, yeah.
It was a 1-0. Like, because Mexico just kept on attacking on the counter-attack, and it was so fun. And Germany obviously were losing 1-0, and like it was in the Luzhniki Stadium, so there's like 82,000 people.
Sorry, Luke, you just reminded me of something I really wanted to say. So I've been sitting on this for ages, but
Yeah.
you know the K, Sarah, whatever will be, we're going to Wembley. Like, I came up with like a great chant. I came up with it pretty much on the first day of the tournament. It was,
there's
we're
Luzhniki.
going to Luzhniki. And I never heard anyone chant it, but I was just sat there thinking to myself, like, it's such a great chant. It was K, Sarah, whatever will be, we're going to Luzhniki. But, yep, didn't happen.
Okay, Sarah. You know, that was the stadium Man United won the Champions League in 2008 against Chelsea.
Of course I knew that, Luke.
Yeah. There's Luzhniki. So it has a special place in my heart, does that stadium. But yeah, so fucking Germany lost to Mexico, then they just squeaked past Sweden, which, by the way, that was, even though they went out, and that moment will be forgotten, Toni Kroos' free kick against Sweden.
Oh, goodness
was one
me.
of the
Okay,
best
yeah, we need
moments of the
to...
World Cup.
I was going to mention that when I was going through my every single match thing, but yeah, incredible free kick.
Yeah, incredible free kick. Like, the difficulty, because it was such a tight angle, and to bend it round the wall into the top corner, just world class from Toni Kroos. But yeah, that was all
Yeah.
irrelevant, because then they get knocked out by South Korea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Did you watch that game?
Yeah, I did. I watched it. Actually, I watched it in a hotel room while eating Domino's pizza.
That's fantastic. Yeah, so I remember I was watching it with Dylan and one of our other housemates, and it was just incredible. Like, Germany were going out, and then South Korea scored, and then they scored again. Oh, it was just, wow. It was the first time that Germany got knocked out in the first round of the World Cup for, I think, 80 years. 80 years, because last time was 1938.
Wow. 1938, hold a minute, what about Hitler? Didn't Hitler...
Yeah, we all know they didn't react too well to that. That was a joke.
They get knocked out by Czechoslovakia.
I can't remember who they got knocked out for.
To be fair, literally almost anyone who knocked them out, they probably invaded them afterwards. Considering how many people they invaded afterwards, there's a good chance that one of the people. I'm gonna actually find out while you say something else.
I think it might have been Switzerland.
If you have it, Switzerland, the one place. Anyway, yeah. If you have anything interesting to say it now, and I'll.
Yeah. So obviously for Germany, massive disappointment. The reigning champions knocked out in the group stage. So much talent. And then to lose to South Korea, who really weren't that good at all. The thing is, they could have beat South Korea and could have gone through. Like, Hummels had a chance to get a header. And these are the fine margins that we mentioned before. But yeah, this German team, awful. And maybe they're going to have another reset like they did back in, I think, the year was 2000 or 1998, when they were like, right, the German national team isn't doing well, we need to reset. And obviously they managed to win the World Cup in 2014. Maybe they're going to have another reset. So yeah, Germany. Actually, one more thing about Germany, and I think this may explain why they weren't so good. And I think you're going to enjoy this, Michael. Have you got the game up in 1938, which they lost?
Yes, to Switzerland, you're right. In penalties.
My memory is absolutely the greatest. Unmatched.
And Italy won that one.
Yeah.
And they won 34-2. So
Yes.
fascists still win. Wonderful.
Wonderful. You know what happened in the 1934 World Cup final?
I don't know. No.
No, before the game, because I believe it was hosted in Italy. Before the game, what's he called? The dictator? Mussolini.
Yeah, Mussolini.
Yeah, Mussolini. The night before the game, treated the referee to dinner. The referee of the World Cup final had dinner with Mussolini the night before.
Wow. You know what is really interesting though? There were hardly any non-European sides in this tournament. There was literally just Brazil. and Cuba. That was it.
Fucking Cuba.
Brazil and Cuba were the only two non-European sides.
That's great. So yeah, Germany. Okay, so I read about this in the paper. Apparently there was a split in the German camp between the two sides, and you had there was obviously the old German guard, the people from like the Bundesliga, Bavaria, Bayern Munich, who'd won the tournament in 2014, or had been the main people, in 2014 who had helped Germany lift the title. And then you had the new gang, so sort of the younger players, who had been very successful recently, and there was a split in the German locker room. Do you know what the young gang or the young members of the team were called? They weren't called Hitler Youth, no. They were called the Bling Bling Gang. I'm not making that up. That's what they called themselves, the Bling Bling Gang.
Why are Europeans so behind on their trends?
I don't know. Well, it's just like when I heard it, it's like, no, someone had got to coin them. No, but they fucking made it up themselves, I think, anyway. So the Bling Bling Gang was like Mesut Ozil. I think he was leading it, and it was a lot of the younger German players who were not traditional. They weren't white, basically, and they had Turkish roots, Gundogan.
Yeah.
And basically, the thing, what caused the split in the team, is that the Bling Bling Gang wanted Leroy Sané, the Manchester City player, who had a fantastic season at Manchester City, to be included in the German 23-man squad, and he wasn't, and that upset the Bling Bling Gang. And I believe it was Mats Hummels, one of the old German guard, a central defender from Bayern Munich, who said, well, you know what, he didn't do enough to get in the squad. You have to have done something. He's too young, basically. Not old enough to be in the squad. And that was the sort of the divide in the German locker room, or dressing room, I should say. And obviously that translated onto the pitch. I think that probably is the reason why they got knocked out. Just no team chemistry.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. That's interesting.
That is interesting. That's actually a bit of the old politics there then.
Yeah. Actually, before the World Cup, players like Gundogan and Ozil, I believe Gundogan primarily met with Turkish President Erdogan, and Gundogan, I think, was quoted as saying, "That's my president." So yeah, I'm not a fan of Erdogan, so I'm glad that Gundogan got his comeuppance. But yeah, it's certainly a lot of interesting politics involved in that German team.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. Well done. That's good fact finding now, Luke.
Thank you. Well, I just read stuff. But yeah,
well, still, I mean, to be honest, Luke, that's really the best way to find facts. I mean, to be honest, that's probably the best way of finding facts, considering most people find out their facts nowadays from YouTube videos. Reading is the OG way of finding out facts. So well done.
Wow,
I just watch videos, and I don't even watch. I just put them into 2x speed, pick up what I can from the 2x speed video, and that's how I learn all my facts.
Yes.
Anyway, do you want to talk about? We're done talking. Oh, actually, we're not quite done talking about countries, but
we're not quite. But now our discussion is going to talk about players,
individuals,
and their countries. So obviously, Messi and Ronaldo is next up. They represented Argentina and Portugal, who both got knocked out in the round of 16. Interestingly, if they had both won their matches, they would have faced each other in the quarterfinals, which would have been very interesting. Messi versus Ronaldo on the biggest stage. Obviously, I think this tournament, more than 2018 and certainly 2010, was the tournament of Messi versus Ronaldo. There was a lot of talk, on social media during the tournament and before the tournament of, it's going to be Messi versus Ronaldo. Because these two players are both coming to the ends of their career. This was probably going to be the last time either of them competed in the World Cup at an elite level, the best player on for their country. Who knows? Maybe Messi can still be that at 35, but if that's the case, then Argentina will probably be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think these two definitely took center stage for the early matches. Argentina struggled. Ronaldo scored that hat trick against Spain.
Yeah, I was thinking that. That was also a really good match.
Yeah. And it was who's Ronaldo's having a better tournament than Messi? Is Ronaldo overtaking Messi as the greatest of all time? And there was just a lot of chat about who's the greatest of all time between Messi and Ronaldo. And this was a chance for both of them to stake their claim as the best. Obviously, they both got knocked out in the round of 16, so that talk quickly faded. However, obviously, I think the reason why this Messi-Ronaldo debate was so fierce at this World Cup was because of social media. In 2014 and 2010, obviously, there wasn't that much social media. Well, there's still a lot, but not as much as there is now.
No.
Basically, social media basically, like, a lot of players are on it, like, a lot of pundits are on it, like, it does dominate a lot of conversation surrounding football. Certainly nowadays. Like, back in the day, it used to be like drive-in, like, talk sport stuff, and now, like, all that stuff is done on Twitter instead. Also in 2014, the reason Messi and Ronaldo were still really good in 2014. They were still at the peak of their powers. But in 2014, do you remember the main narrative from 2014, Michael? You can probably guess.
Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil.
Yeah.
It was like, the World Cup was being hosted by Brazil. They hadn't won it in 12 years, which isn't a lot, but for Brazil it kind of is. And it was like, this is the chance for Brazil to, like, become legends. Like, the last time they hosted the World Cup was in 1950, and they lost in the final to Uruguay. Like, can Brazil win the World Cup? And obviously, the Messi and Ronaldo conversation got put to one side for that. Even though, but that's the thing, Messi got to the final with Argentina. But there was no real talk about that. It was really all about Brazil.
Yeah.
And obviously, they got humiliated. Probably the biggest humiliation in World Cup history.
That's
like, losing
hilarious.
7-1 in a semi-final in your own fucking country. That's can't get worse than that. So, Brazil, in 2014, that was the main thing. In 2010, like, Messi and Ronaldo there wasn't really conversation. Like, Ronaldo spent 1 year at Real Madrid. Messi wasn't like, oh, he's the greatest player of all time. He was just, starting off. So this was the tournament of Messi versus Ronaldo. The fact that that was the major narrative. Like, it wasn't like, oh, can Russia win? Or, oh, this team is incredible. There wasn't like an incredible team at the tournament or anything like that. And it was probably the last chance for both of these two sides to win the tournament. Both these two players.
Yeah.
To win the tournament as the best player. So, by the way, who do you think is better, Messi or Ronaldo?
Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you who I thought Ronaldo was better in this tournament. I guess you'll probably not dispute that. I'm trying to think, like, I honestly think Messi on balance, but I couldn't substantiate that much apart from just saying that I feel like, see, the thing about Ronaldo is that obviously he has a garbage personality.
No, I don't think he does.
Well, okay, you're wrong.
He's a narcissist, yeah, but he's also, like, really good to, like, charity.
Yeah,
stuff.
okay, yeah. But he's a narcissist then. Which, yeah. And one of the things is, I think because he's a narcissist, you feel his failures more. Like, for example, let's pick a really recent example. In the Liverpool-Real Madrid finals, Champions League finals.
Champions League, yeah.
Yeah. One of the big things that was happening was, like, Gareth Bale scored loads of goals. Well, I can't remember how many goals he scored, but he scored 2. Yeah, Gareth Bale was doing really well, and Ronaldo wasn't doing as well, and it was kind of like, the thing I remember kind of feeling was, oh look, Ronaldo's getting shown up. But the only reason I kind of thought that was because it kind of like, the way Ronaldo was acting, like he was not congratulating Gareth Bale, he wasn't like being like, so the fact that Ronaldo is such a narcissist that he can't handle someone else stealing the spotlight makes you realise when people steal the spotlight. Or for example, I think it was 2010 World Cup, when Portugal were in the, this is a great one, Portugal were in penalty shootouts, and Ronaldo decided that he wanted to take the last penalty, because he wanted to be the one who won it for Portugal. And then, of course, he didn't get to take his penalty because Portugal went out after.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And the thing is, and again, like, that's the thing, when I think of Ronaldo, because he's such a narcissist that, like, it focuses, like, he makes, you kind of feel the effect of all his failures. It makes me think of his failures a lot more. Whereas with Messi, I just kind of think of his skill. So I admit there's probably a psychological reason for it. But anyway, what do you think, Luke?
No, yeah, I think Messi is the best player ever. I think his talent is unmatched, and we are privileged to be at a time when we can see him, especially if you like football.
Messi,
Ronaldo,
go, Messi. Have you ever seen that?
Yes. Like, Ronaldo is incredible, and it is basically like man versus machine, and Ronaldo is the machine. Like, he just scores over and over again, and works so hard, and is just so committed to being a footballer. But with Messi, he's just got so much talent. Like, I don't know if anyone has ever been born in the history of humanity with as much talent as Lionel Messi has when it comes to talent. When it comes to football talent.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but he's just so good. And he, like, I think he's the best player I've ever seen, especially that 2012 season when he scored like 96 goals or however much in a single calendar year. That was in the year 2012, I believe he scored 96 goals in all competitions, which beat the record of Gerd Muller, who scored like 92 or whatever. So that right there was the best season or year of football ever, and Lionel Messi, best player I've ever seen. And although I love Ronaldo, and I just can't, have so much appreciation of what he's managed to accomplish. Like, he wanted to be the best player in the world, and he has been the best player in the world. Like, he has had seasons where he's been better than Messi, but overall it's Messi. And I'd have really this World Cup didn't need Ronaldo and Messi to have a great tournament. They didn't need that because I think it was a great tournament anyway. But it would have been really nice if one of them made it far, like maybe the semi-finals, and especially if they met each other in the quarterfinals, or obviously things had worked out differently, the semi-finals or the finals. That would have been fucking incredible to see.
Yeah, I agree. So kind of, and I guess also I suppose it's one thing is it is kind of evidence of so obviously kind of coming full circle, even though we can't really come full circle because we're not done yet. But we were talking about kind of Belgium and how and France, I guess, but especially Belgium had so many just really good players, but no kind of team identity. There's no real team identity for Belgium apart from just they've got loads of good players. And I guess
they changed formation so much.
Yeah, and yet they managed to do well with loads of good players. I guess the message with Messi and Ronaldo is if you need more than one really good player, even if they're a really good player, basically.
Well, yeah. If you,
I guess Bale and Wales. Remember when Wales did quite well in the Euros?
Yeah, but they had Aaron Ramsey was decent as well.
That's
Aaron
true.
Ramsey's I think in international football, the thing is you need a bit of luck as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's what you need. You need a bit of luck, unless you're just fucking so good, like you blitz everybody like 3-0, then you don't need luck. But most teams throughout history, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And if Argentina, the thing is, Argentina obviously lost to the winners, France, 4-3. But if they scored, because they had a chance actually, like the 95th minute to score an equaliser, and it was a cross that went over the bar, over everyone's heads. And if that cross had found a person in the box and the ball had gone in, it's 4-4. Like, who knows what happens after that? Like, maybe we get Argentina in the semi-finals against Uruguay.
Yeah. Almost always in football, you could just say luck could decide it. Almost always.
Yeah, like, disappointing ton for Argentina, but they could have fucking drawn in the knockout stage against the eventual winners. Just the fine margins. So disappointment for Messi and Ronaldo, but I don't think it's going to impact on their legacies. They're still going to be the best two football players in the history of the game. But yeah, it could have been Messi versus Ronaldo. One of them could have dominated the tournament. Sadly for them, that did not happen, and we are still stuck where we were before the tournament. With whoever you think's better is still better.
Yeah,
and not much has changed.
Yeah.
So Brazil and Neymar next. Now, obviously Brazil, I think, were the best team in the tournament. And I think, so what I mean by that, obviously they didn't win it, but if you had a league season, so in the Premier League there's 38 games, if you had 38 games between the best 20 teams at this World Cup, then I think Brazil would come out as champions at the end of it. They would have the most points. So that's what I mean by when I say they're the best team.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Well, yeah, obviously they're a really good team. I should know this. How many points did they get in the group stages?
Brazil.
They lost to Switzerland. Oh, they drew to Switzerland.
They drew Switzerland and then they won their other two games.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I think, because obviously the thing is I guess we've kind of said this quite a few times, but the thing that makes the World Cup so lucky in a way is that there's only a few games. And are you familiar with something called the law of large numbers?
No.
The basic concept. So basically you have the larger a sample size, the more that sample size will reflect probability. And obviously, for example, you can talk about probability. The probability reflects the likelihood of a team winning, aka probability reflects how good the team is. So, for example, if you just have Brazil play average team Iceland, let's say, then there's a chance Iceland could win that in one match. I mean, they'd be very lucky, but they could win. Brazil could be off, Iceland could be on. But if you had, then several other teams of similar caliber to Iceland, Denmark, Peru, Panama, wherever else, spread out, and then you had Brazil, and then Brazil would obviously end up at the top because they've played more games, and that's so. Yeah, I guess in that sense, yeah. I'm trying to think
just
if
on
any
that
team would actually beat them, and I wouldn't guess that any team would beat them.
Yeah, just on that. That's why in the NBA the best team always wins, because you have 82 regular season games, so like the best team is at the top of the standings, and then when it comes to the playoffs, it's a best of 7. So whoever wins 4 games first, and so therefore when there's so many games being played, potentially 7, like I think obviously when that happens, the best team is always going to win. And then there's 4 rounds of best of 7, so maybe you get lucky in one series, but you're not going to get lucky in the next best of 7. So the best team always wins, and I think obviously the World Cup isn't the best of 7. That's one of the reasons why it's so exciting. But yeah, Brazil very unfortunate not to progress, because they were better than Belgium, and against France, who knows who wins? But yeah, they were just unlucky. Like I said, I think they're the best team, and I think the best player at the World Cup was actually Neymar. If you just look at the stats, he was so vital to Brazil, like most fouls drawn, most dribbles, most successful passes in the opposition half. He was just vital to Brazil. And I think Neymar can look at this as a missed opportunity. When he was 4 years ago, I think he was 21 years old when Brazil hosted the World Cup. That was a major opportunity for him, obviously because he was Brazil's best player in his home country, and just not any home country, playing for Brazil, like the most fucking football mad country, and the country with the best history in the World Cup in as the host nation. What an opportunity as the best player to win it and just become a legend of Brazilian football, and a legend of football in terms of all countries. Like, it would have been incredible if Neymar managed to pull that off. Sadly got injured, and then they lost 7-1 to Germany. So that didn't happen. But in this tournament, he's 25 years old. He's in his prime. In 2022 he'll be 29, so he'll probably not be as good as he is right now. And the best team on this Brazilian team, who, like I said, I think they're the best team at the tournament. What a chance for him. What an opportunity to win the World Cup. To put him in the conversation alongside Messi and Ronaldo as the best player in the world. That's what was, on the table for Neymar in this World Cup. That's what he could have achieved. Like I said, he was the best player, but what do you think you'll remember when it comes to Neymar in regards to this tournament? What do you think will be your defining memory?
Yeah, I don't think there is one really for me.
Oh no, there is definitely one when it comes to Neymar. The rolling.
Oh, you mean the one where he rolled like 7 times?
Yes.
You know what? I remember that incident. I'd forgotten it was Neymar who did it. That was, yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Everyone. Yeah. Oh, and that's like a whole meme. I'm kind of I'm kind of embarrassed that I didn't. I remember. Yeah, there was a whole meme about that. I guess we should say, just an aside, that one of the things that people who don't like football like to complain about is that football players dive all the time and they make a big deal out of minor things. And obviously Neymar didn't help that. So I think obviously
Neymar took that to the extreme.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. A lot of people are going to remember from this World Cup about Neymar. His play acting, his rolling on the floor. He's like, you touch him and he's just like rolls 6 times. And that's the thing. He could have had an amazing tournament. He could have, it could have been his tournament. He could have been the best player, won the World Cup for Brazil. It was such a massive opportunity for him. And not only, obviously, was it a missed chance, but his actual standing in world football was worsened by the diving and the play acting. And then you've got his teammate, his PSG teammate, Mbappe, who had an incredible World Cup, who was the star of the World Cup. So it's going to be interesting, like I said, when they get back to PSG, Mbappe and Neymar, who's going to be the man there. Maybe Neymar goes to Real Madrid. That's a rumor. I don't know if that happens, but yeah. I just want to say for Neymar that this was his chance. He was injured and a bit young, even though it was a fantastic opportunity because Brazil hosted in 2014. But in this one in 2018, he had the best team, the best player. Other teams didn't